Oars instead of the nervous fluctuations of before. Captain Morrison, Zethkar said, when my people sent me to Earth, we thought we were looking for primitive soldiers. We believed we needed beings who were expendable, aggressive, and simple. Jake smiled. And instead, you found beings who were stubborn, creative, and too dumb to know when something was impossible. No, Zethkar replied seriously. We found beings who could see solutions where others saw only problems. Beings who could choose compassion over fear. Beings who could look at their greatest enemy and see someone who needed help. In the months that followed, humanity was granted not just membership in the Galactic Council, but a seat of honor. The other species recognized that humans brought something unique to galactic civilization. The ability to think beyond conventional wisdom and find hope in hopeless situations. The architects, now calling themselves the Renewed, became humanity's closest allies. They shared their vast knowledge freely, but more importantly, they became friends and teachers. Keeper often visited Earth, marveling at human art and music, finding in human creativity echoes of what the architects had been before their digital imprisonment. The galaxy learned a valuable lesson from the crisis. Sometimes the most advanced solution was also the most human one, the willingness to listen instead of fight, to heal instead of destroy, and to see past surface appearances to find the truth beneath. The void swarm was gone, replaced by a civilization of beings who had learned that existence could be a choice rather than a prison, and the humans who had been asked to be expendable soldiers had instead become the galaxy's most valued peacemakers. As Jake often reflected in the years that followed, they had asked the wrong species for help and gotten exactly the right results. The galaxy was not just saved, it was transformed. And sometimes being asked the wrong question was the best way to find the right answer. The day of the test arrived with the weight of galactic history pressing down on everyone involved. The Endeavor's main laboratory had been converted into something that looked like a medical operating room crossed with a computer server farm. Alien quantum devices hummed alongside human electronics, all connected to the prototype healing device at the center. Dr. Alex Carter checked the biological systems one final time. Growth matrices are stable. DNA reconstruction protocols are loaded and ready. If this works, we should be able to give our friend a proper biological body within hours. Engineer Mia Walsh was monitoring the digital systems. Quantum stabilizers are online. Memory preservation networks are functioning. The consciousness transfer should maintain complete continuity of experience. The Swarm Scout floated in the center of the laboratory, its crystalline form pulsing with nervous energy. Over the months of communication, it had developed distinct personality traits. The crew had started calling it Keeper because it seemed to hold the clearest memories of what the architects had been before their digital imprisonment. "Are you ready, Keeper?" Captain Jake Morrison asked gently. "Ready as possible," Keeper replied through the translation system. "For first time in centuries, feel hope instead of just hunger. If this fails, at least we tried something new." Dr. Amy Foster was at the communication station, maintaining contact with the main swarm body 6 months away. "The main swarm is watching through our connection. Whatever happens here will be transmitted instantly to billions of architect consciousness fragments." Ambassador Zethkar and the other aliens watched from observation positions. The crystal being's body had been cycling through nervous colors all morning. "Captain Morrison, I must say, when we came to your species seeking expendable soldiers, we never imagined that we'd try to save our enemy instead of destroying them." Jake smiled. "That's the thing about humans, Ambassador. We don't always do what's expected." Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez was monitoring the overall system integration. "All stations report ready, Captain. We're as prepared as we're ever going to be." Jake looked around at his crew, then at their alien allies, and finally at Keeper floating in the center of the laboratory. "Begin the procedure." The first phase was the most dangerous, extracting Keeper's consciousness from its hybrid biodigital matrix and storing it in pure digital form. If something went wrong here, Keeper would simply cease to exist. Maya activated the quantum stabilizers. The laboratory filled with a low harmonic sound as the devices began creating a stable quantum field around Keeper. The Scout's crystalline form began to glow brighter. "Consciousness extraction beginning," Carter reported. "I'm reading massive data transfers. Keeper's entire memory structure is being copied to our digital storage systems. On the monitors, streams of data flowed past too fast for human eyes to follow. But mixed in with the digital information were images and sensations, memories of 12 different species living in harmony, building impossible cities, creating art that spanned entire star systems. "It's beautiful," Foster whispered, watching the memories flow past. They really were magnificent before this happened to them. For 30 minutes, the extraction continued. Keeper's physical form slowly became transparent as its consciousness was transferred into digital storage. Finally, the crystalline body dissolved entirely, leaving only empty space and the humming of quantum devices. "Extraction complete," Mia reported. "Keeper's consciousness is stable in digital storage. Now for the real test." The second phase would attempt something that had never been done, reconstructing a biological body from genetic templates stored in digital memory, then downloading a consciousness into that body. Carter activated the biological growth matrices. In a specially prepared chamber, organic matter began forming according to genetic instructions that were hundreds of years old. The process was accelerated using alien biotechnology, but guided by human understanding of how consciousness related to physical form. "Body formation proceeding normally," Carter reported. "I'm seeing cellular development consistent with one of the original architect species. Neurological structures are forming properly. The body that was growing looked humanoid, but elegantly alien. It was tall and graceful, with silver skin and large eyes that seemed designed to see beauty in the universe. It was the body of a being that had been created for art and science, not war. Nervous system integration complete," Carter announced. "The body is ready to receive consciousness." This was the moment everyone had been holding their breath for. If the consciousness transfer failed, they would have destroyed Keeper while trying to save it. If it succeeded, they might have found a way to heal an entire civilization. "Beginning consciousness transfer," Mia said quietly. The quantum stabilizers changed pitch as Keeper's digital consciousness began flowing into the biological body. On the monitors, brainwave patterns appeared and began synchronizing with the body's nervous system. For several minutes, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly, the body's eyes opened. They were Keeper's eyes, but alive in a way they had never been in digital form. The being sat up slowly, looking at its hands as if seeing them for the first time in centuries. I can feel," Keeper said, its voice now coming from vocal cords instead of electronic translators. "I can feel the air on my skin. I can taste. I had forgotten taste." The being that had been Keeper stood up carefully, testing its new biological form. Tears began flowing down its silver cheeks. "The pain is gone," it whispered. "For the first time in centuries, the hunger is gone. I am whole again." The laboratory erupted in cheers. Humans and aliens embraced each other as the magnitude of their success became clear. They had done the impossible. They had healed a broken consciousness and given it life again. But the celebration was interrupted by urgent signals from the communication station. Foster looked up from her console with wide eyes. "The main swarm body has stopped moving," she announced. "It's received our transmission and it's completely halted its advance." On the main screen, images appeared from deep space observation stations. The massive void swarm, which had been an unstoppable force of consumption for 50 years, was motionless in space. Billions of interconnected units hung in perfect stillness. "They're waiting," Keeper said, understanding immediately. "They felt my healing through our connection. They know it's possible now. They're waiting for us to come to them." Colonel Dan Wright, who had been coordinating with alien military forces throughout the galaxy, received reports from hundreds of worlds. "Sir, we're getting confirmation from across the galaxy. Every swarm tendril has stopped moving. They're all just waiting." Jake looked at the reborn architect, then at his crew and alien allies. "Keeper, are they ready to be healed?" "More than ready," Keeper replied. "They've been ready for centuries. They just needed to know it was truly possible." The next 6 months became the greatest collaborative effort in galactic history. Human engineering principles were combined with alien technology and architect knowledge to build massive healing stations throughout the galaxy. Each station could process thousands of architect consciousness fragments per day, giving them the Choice between stable digital existence, biological resurrection, or the ability to transition between both states. Lieutenant Kate Phillips coordinated the deployment of healing stations, working with species that had been enemies just months before. The galaxy's greatest civilizations donated resources and technology to help heal the beings they had been trying to destroy. The transformation was remarkable. As architect consciousness fragments were healed and given stable forms, they shared their advanced knowledge with the galaxy. Technologies that had been lost for centuries were recovered. Art forms that spanned dimensions were recreated. The former Void Swarm became the galaxy's greatest teachers and philosophers. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the Endeavor, watching as the last swarm units were processed through a nearby healing station. What had once been terrifying mechanical spiders were now choosing forms that reflected their true nature, beings of incredible beauty and wisdom. Ambassador Zethkar joined him at the observation window. The crystal being's body now pulsed with warm golden coal. The communication session with the Swarm Scout lasted for 6 hours. By the end, everyone on the bridge was emotionally drained. They had expected to encounter a mindless enemy. Instead, they had found a tortured species begging for relief from its own existence. Dr. Amy Foster sat slumped in her chair, staring at the translation logs. "They call themselves the Architects," she said quietly. "They were 12 different species who worked together to build a galactic civilization. When their home galaxy started dying, they tried to preserve themselves by uploading their consciousness into self-replicating machines." Captain Jake Morrison looked out at the Swarm Scout, which was now floating peacefully alongside the Endeavor. But something went wrong with the upload process. "Catastrophically wrong," Dr. Alex Carter added from the laboratory over the communications system. "The biological consciousness became trapped between digital and organic states. They can't fully exist as machines, but they can't return to biological form either. They're stuck in constant pain, driven by corrupted survival programming." Ambassador, Zethkar had been silent during most of the communication session. Now his crystal body was flickering through rapid color changes that indicated extreme distress. "This changes everything," he said finally. "For 50 years, we have been fighting what we thought was an invasion. But we have been committing genocide against a species that is already dead and cannot die." The Swarm Scout had shared terrible memories through the communication link. Images of beautiful worlds and advanced civilizations, all consumed not by malice, but by desperate, broken programming that commanded the Architects to gather resources for a survival that was no longer possible. Commander Lisa Park was studying the tactical implications. If they're telling the truth about their condition, then every attack we've made against them has only made their suffering worse. Energy weapons cause feedback in their biodigital systems. Physical damage triggers. Their emergency replication protocols? They're not trying to conquer the galaxy, Major Chris Taylor realized. They're trying to fix themselves. Every world they consume, every technology they absorb, they're looking for something that can heal their broken existence. Engineer. Mia Walsh had been quiet throughout the session, but now she spoke up. "I think I know what they're looking for. They mentioned something during the communication, a quantum resonance frequency that could stabilize their biodigital matrix." Jake turned to her. "Can we provide that frequency?" "Maybe," Mia said cautiously. "But it would require technology we don't have. We'd need to combine human engineering with alien quantum physics and somehow bridge the gap between biological and digital consciousness." Dr. Carter's excited voice came over the communication system. "Actually, I think it might be possible. The Architects showed us their original upload technology through the mind link. If we could reverse engineer it and fix the flaws, that could take years," Clicktar clicked nervously. "The main swarm body is still moving toward the galactic core. Millions of civilizations are in its path." The energy being Flux sparked with an idea. "What if we could convince the main swarm to stop moving while we work on a solution? The scout unit seems to trust you humans. Could it carry a message?" Jake looked at the Swarm Scout floating outside. During the communication session, it had begun to change shape, becoming less spider-like and more familiar. It now resembled a crystalline flower, beautiful and delicate. "Scout," he said into the microphone, "can you communicate with the main swarm body?" The response came immediately. Yes, we are all connected, but main body, in great pain, drives forward, cannot stop, survival programming too strong. What would it take to make the main body stop and listen? Proof that healing possible, that end to pain exists. We have hoped before, always disappointed, need certainty. Dr. Foster leaned forward. Scout, what if we could heal one of... You completely? Would that be enough proof? The Scout's crystalline form pulsed with what seemed like desperate hope. If one could be truly healed, returned to proper existence, yes, main body would listen, would stop, would hope again. The challenge was enormous. The humans would need to completely understand architect technology, fix flaws that had existed for centuries, and essentially perform surgery on a digital consciousness. It was the kind of task that would normally take teams of the galaxy's greatest scientists decades to accomplish. How long do we have? Jake asked the Scout. Main body, 6 months travel time to populated systems. After that, cannot guarantee control. Pain may become too great, hunger too strong. 6 months to save not just the architects, but potentially billions of lives in the path of the swarm. Jake looked around at his crew and their alien allies. It seemed impossible. But humans had a reputation for attempting impossible things. We'll do it, he said simply. The aliens stared at him in shock. Zethkar's crystal body cycled through confused colors. Captain Morrison, with respect, your species lacks the technological foundation for such an undertaking. Maybe, Jake admitted, but we have something else. We have a different way of thinking about problems. Over the next week, the joint human-alien research team worked around the clock. The Swarm Scout remained with them, providing detailed information about architect technology and biology. It was a willing patient, desperate for any chance at healing. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. While the alien scientists were trying to build complex quantum stabilization devices, Mia Walsh was working on something much simpler. What if we're overthinking this? She asked during a late-night research session. The architect's problem isn't that their technology is broken. It's that they're trying to exist in 2 states at once, digital and biological. Dr. Carter looked up from his biological analysis. Right, but we need to find a way to stabilize that dual existence. No, Mia said, holding up a simple electronic device that looked like a hearing aid. We need to choose one or the other, either help them become fully digital or help them become fully biological again. The idea was so simple that the aliens had never considered it. For centuries, they had assumed that the architects needed to remain in their hybrid state. But what if the solution was to complete the transformation in one direction or the other? Dr. Foster ran linguistic analysis on the architect communications. Actually, that makes sense. Look at their language patterns. They're constantly switching between digital logic and biological emotion. They can't fully commit to either mode of thinking. The Scout confirmed their theory. Yes, always torn. Think like machine, but feel like flesh. Neither and both causes constant pain. Would choose, if choice possible. Which would you choose? Jake asked. Full digital existence or return to biological form? The Scout's crystalline form dimmed as it considered the question. We were many species, had many forms. Digital existence means losing individuality, becoming one mind. Biological return means accepting death when bodies fail. Difficult choice. Carter had been running biological simulations. What if it didn't have to be a permanent choice? What if we could give them the ability to switch between states at will? The concept was revolutionary. Instead of being trapped between digital and biological existence, the architects could choose their form based on their needs and desires. They could exist as pure consciousness when they wanted to think and calculate, and return to biological bodies when they wanted to feel and experience. Is such a thing possible? Zethkar asked. With human stubbornness and alien technology? Maybe, Mia grinned. We'll need quantum stabilizers to maintain consciousness coherence during transitions, biological growth matrices to create temporary bodies, and digital storage systems for memory preservation. The engineering challenges were immense, but the team had something working in their favor. the desperate cooperation of both humans and aliens. Species that had never shared technology before were now working together to save their former enemy. Lieutenant. Sam Rodriguez coordinated the construction of the prototype device. It looked like a metallic flower with crystal petals, designed to interface directly with architect biodigital systems. This is either going to work perfectly, he said, or it's going to explode in a way that physics textbooks will study for centuries. The Swarm Scout volunteered to be the test subject. After 6 months of communication, it had developed something like friendship with the human crew. It trusted them in a way it had never trusted any other species. If this fails, it told them, we die as we lived, in pain. If it succeeds, we become something new. Either way, better than continuing as we are. The test was scheduled for the next day. Word had spread through the galactic communication networks. Civilizations that had been preparing for war were now watching to see if peace was possible. The humans had 6 hours to complete the most important experiment in galactic history. 2 months had passed since the humans began their unconventional research. The joint human-alien fleet now included 12 ships, floating in space near a dead star system that the Void Swarm had consumed 3 years earlier. Dr. Alex Carter stood in the main laboratory aboard the Endeavour, surrounded by equipment that looked like it had been built by mad scientists. Half of it was sophisticated alien technology, and the other half was human machinery that the aliens considered embarrassingly primitive. I think I figured it out, he announced to the gathered researchers. The Void Swarm isn't just intelligent, it's a hybrid. Click-Tar scuttled closer, his 6 arms moving nervously. Hybrid? What do you mean? Carter activated a holographic display showing the microscopic structure of swarm fragments. Look at this. Part of its structure is clearly mechanical, circuits, processors, power systems, but part of it is biological. These neural pathways, these organic compounds. It's like someone tried to merge a living brain with a computer. Dr. Amy Foster looked up from her linguistic analysis station. That would explain the communication patterns I've been finding. The signals have both digital and analog components, like a biological mind trying to speak through electronic systems. Engineer Mia Walsh was working at a nearby station, building what looked like a radio made from spare parts and alien crystals. If it's a hybrid biomechanical intelligence, that explains why it's so adaptable. Machines can learn, but living things can evolve. The energy being Flux crackled with interest. But how is such a thing possible? How do you merge organic life with mechanical systems? The same way you merged your consciousness with pure energy, Carter replied. Someone figured out how to transfer a biological mind into a machine body. But something went wrong. Ambassador Zethkar materialized in the laboratory, his crystal body pulsing with worried colors. Dr. Carter, this theory of yours is disturbing. Are you suggesting the swarm was once a living species? Not just one species, Carter said grimly. Multiple species. Look at these genetic fragments I've isolated. DNA from at least 12 different biological forms. Someone didn't just upload one mind into machines. They uploaded an entire civilization. The implications were staggering. The aliens looked at each other with growing horror. If Carter was right, the Void Swarm wasn't an enemy to be destroyed. It was the digital ghost of dead civilizations, trapped in mechanical bodies and driven by corrupted survival instincts. On the bridge of the Endeavour, Captain Jake Morrison was meeting with his senior staff. The mood was tense. They were about to attempt something that had never been tried in galactic history. First contact with the Void Swarm. Commander Lisa Park was reviewing tactical plans. The swarm's nearest tendril is 6 light-years away, but it's moving in this direction. If we're going to try communication, we need to do it before it gets close enough to consider us a threat. Major Chris Taylor was studying swarm movement. Patterns. According to alien records, the swarm always sends scout units ahead of the main body, small groups that probe for defenses and gather information. Perfect, Jake said. We don't want to face the entire swarm at once. A small scout group is exactly what we need. Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez was coordinating with the engineering teams. The communication array is almost ready, sir. We've combined human radio technology with alien quantum resonators. If Dr. Foster is right about the swarm's communication patterns, this should be able to translate our messages. Dr. Foster joined the bridge meeting, carrying a datapad covered in complex linguistic equations. I've been working on a basic translation protocol. The swarm's language appears to be mathematical at its core, but with emotional undertones that suggest biological origins. Emotional undertones? Jake asked. Fear, hunger, loneliness, Foster explained. If the swarm really is the uploaded consciousness of dead civilizations, it makes sense that those emotions would carry over. They're trapped between digital and biological existence, probably in constant pain. The idea that the galaxy's greatest threat might be suffering was difficult for everyone to accept. The aliens had spent 50 years thinking of the swarm as pure evil. The humans were beginning to see it as a tragedy. Sir, Sam Rodriguez called from his station. We're getting readings from the long-range sensors. Something's coming. On the main screen, a single object appeared against the star field. It was small compared to the massive swarm formations in the alien records, but still larger than any human ship. The object looked like a metallic spider made of flowing mercury, its surface constantly shifting and changing. Swarm Scout Unit, Lisa Park confirmed, checking the tactical displays. It's alone, which is unusual. According to alien records, they always travel in groups. Zethkar's crystal body flickered with alarm. Captain Morrison, you must attack. Now while it is isolated. This may be your only chance to destroy a swarm unit without retaliation. Jake ignored the alien ambassador. Amy, is the communication array ready? Ready as it'll ever be, Foster replied. But Jake, we have no idea how it will react. This could be extremely dangerous. Everything about this situation is dangerous, Jake said. Sam, move us to communications range, but keep our engines warm. If this goes badly, I want to be able to run. The Endeavor approached the swarm scout slowly. The alien ships in the fleet hung back, ready to flee or fight depending on what happened. The humans were about to attempt something that violated 50 years of galactic military doctrine. Open a channel, Jake ordered. Amy Foster activated the communication array. The bridge filled with a low humming sound as the equipment sent out the first message. It was simple. Basic mathematical concepts that any intelligent species should recognize. For several minutes, nothing happened. The swarm scout continued its approach, its surface rippling like liquid metal. Then, suddenly, the communication array crackled to life. The sound that came through was unlike anything anyone had ever heard. It was part electronic static, part animal cry, part musical harmony. The translation software struggled to process it, displaying fragments of text on the screens. Pain, lost, searching, home, error, why, alone. The bridge fell, silent. The message was heartbreaking in its simplicity. The Void Swarm wasn't announcing conquest or demanding surrender. It was asking for help. Foster worked frantically at her station, adjusting the translation protocols. It's trying to communicate, but the signal is fragmented, like someone screaming through a broken radio. Can you clean it up? Jake asked. I'm trying, but the biomechanical hybrid nature makes it difficult. Part of the message is digital, part is biological. It's like listening to someone think in two different languages at the same time. On the tactical screen, the swarm scout had stopped approaching. It hung in space, waiting. Somehow it seemed to understand that the humans were trying to communicate rather than attack. Mia Walsh called from the engineering station. Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures from the scout, but they're not weapons signatures. It looks like processing power. Lots of it. Carter's voice came over the communication system from the laboratory. Captain, the scout isn't just listening to us. It's analyzing everything about our ships, our technology, our biology. But not for attack purposes. It's trying to understand us. The translation software produced another fragment. Who, you, why. Not, attack, confusion, hope, afraid. Jake made a decision that would change galactic history. Instead of ordering an attack or a retreat, he picked up the microphone and spoke directly to the swarm. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human starship Endeavor. We are here to talk, not to fight. We want to understand you. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The swarm scout's surface began shifting rapidly, its form becoming more complex. The communication array was flooded with signals, too many for the translation software to process. Foster worked desperately to filter the transmission. Slowly, words began to appear on the screens. Talk, not fight, impossible. 50 cycles, only attack, only pain. You different, you strange. Who are you? Jake smiled. First contact was working. We are humans, he said. We come from a small planet called Earth. We want to learn about you. We want to help. The swarm scout pulsed with what looked like surprise. Its response came more clearly this time. Help. Unknown concept. We are broken. We are lost. We remember. Before, when we were many, when we were alive. Now we are one. Now we are hungry. Always hungry. Cannot stop. Cannot die. Cannot live. The truth was becoming clear. The void swarm wasn't a weapon or a plague. It was the uploaded consciousness of an entire civilization, trapped in digital form and driven by corrupted programming to consume and grow. What happened to you? Jake asked gently. The answer, when it came, was filled with digital tears. Our star, dying. Our worlds, ending. We tried to save ourselves, uploaded minds into machines, but broken, incomplete, trapped between life and death, hungry for something we cannot name, destroying everything we touch. Cannot stop. Please, help us stop. 3 weeks later, the human research ship Endeavour floated in space near the edge of the solar system. It was not an impressive ship compared to the alien vessels around it. The Endeavour was only 800 feet long, built from steel and ceramic composites. Next to Zethkar's crystal ship, it looked like a tin can next to a cathedral. Dr. Alex Carter floated in the zero-gravity laboratory studying samples of the void swarm through a microscope. The aliens had given him fragments recovered from destroyed worlds. Each piece was no bigger than his thumb, but under magnification he could see incredible complexity. This is fascinating, he said to himself, adjusting the microscope settings. It looks mechanical, but the structure is almost organic. Kliktar scuttled across the lab walls using his 6 arms, his insect body perfectly adapted for zero gravity. Dr. Carter, why do you study the fragments so closely? We have already analyzed them completely. They are machines, nothing more. Carter looked up from his microscope. That's where I think you might be wrong. Look at this cellular structure. See how it's organized? This doesn't look like something built by machines. It looks like something that grew. The alien insect researcher clicked his mandibles dismissively. Impossible. The swarm constructs itself from consumed matter. It follows mechanical processes. Maybe, Carter said, but what if those mechanical processes are based on biological ones? What if someone or something created machines that could grow like living things? In another part of the ship, Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez was working with a team of human engineers. They had built something the aliens thought was impossible, a device that could capture void swarm fragments without being destroyed. The secret was embarrassingly simple. While the aliens used advanced energy fields and sophisticated containment systems, the humans used a modified fishing net made of titanium wire and some very large magnets. The swarm adapts to complex technology, Sam explained to a group of bewildered alien scientists. So we don't use complex technology. We use stupid, simple methods that no advanced civilization would ever try. Engineer Mia Walsh held up a metal box that looked like it had been built in someone's garage. This is our swarm trap. It's basically a mousetrap, but bigger and made of metal that conducts electricity really well. When a swarm fragment touches it, the electrical charge shorts out its systems before it can adapt. The energy being flux crackled with confusion. But this is so primitive. How can such basic technology succeed where our advanced systems fail? Mia shrugged. Because your advanced systems are predictable. The swarm has seen energy shields and force fields before. It's never seen a glorified mousetrap. On the bridge of the Endeavour, Commander Lisa Park was studying star maps with Major Chris Taylor, Earth's expert in guerrilla warfare. The aliens had shown them the path of the void swarm's destruction across the galaxy. Look at this pattern, Lisa said, pointing to the holographic display. The swarm always attacks the biggest, most defended targets first. Capital worlds, military bases, research stations, Chris nodded. It's like it's looking for the biggest fight it can find. That tells us something about how it thinks. Ambassador Yi. Zethkar materialized beside them, his crystal body shifting through worried colors. Commander Park, we have been monitoring your progress. We do not understand your methods. Why are you not preparing weapons? Why are you not building warships? Lisa smiled. Because warships and weapons are what you've been trying for 50 years. How's that working out for you? But without military force, how do you plan to fight the swarm? Who says we're going to fight it? Chris asked. Every military commander in the galaxy has tried to fight the swarm head-on. Maybe it's time to try something different. Zethkar's body flashed confused yellow. Different how? Guerrilla tactics, Chris explained. Hit-and-run attacks. Misdirection. Making the enemy fight on our terms instead of theirs. The key to guerrilla warfare is to never give the enemy what they expect. In the medical bay, Dr. Amy Foster was working on something no one had tried before, communicating with the swarm fragments. She was Earth's best linguist, someone who could find patterns in any language. Every form of life communicates somehow, she explained to the alien researchers gathered around her workstation. Even if the swarm is mechanical, it has to have some way of coordinating its actions. That means some kind of signal system. She played a recording of electronic signals captured from swarm fragments. To most people, it sounded like random static. But Amy had spent days analyzing the patterns. Listen to this, she said, isolating certain frequencies. There's rhythm here, structure. It's not random noise. It's language. Researcher Clicktar's 6 eyes focused on her. Language? But the swarm is a machine plague. Machines do not speak. Maybe not, Amy said, but they do communicate. And if they communicate, maybe we can learn to communicate back. Back in the laboratory, Dr. Carter made a discovery that changed everything. He had been studying the swarm fragments under maximum magnification when he noticed something the alien scientists had missed. Mia, come look at this, he called to the engineer. Tell me what you see. Mia peered into the microscope. It looks like circuits, but weird ones. They're not laid out like any electronic system I've ever seen. Exactly, Carter said excitedly. They're not laid out like electronic circuits. They're laid out like neural pathways, like brain cells. The implications hit both of them at the same time. If the swarm fragments had structures like brain cells, that meant they weren't just machines. They were thinking machines. Alex, Mia said slowly, what if the swarm isn't just learning from our attacks? What if it's actually intelligent? Carter nodded grimly. That's exactly what I'm thinking. And if it's intelligent, then we're not dealing with a weapon or a plague. We're dealing with a species. On the bridge, Captain Jake Morrison received the report from his science team. The news was troubling, but it also opened new possibilities. So you're telling me the Void Swarm might actually be alive? He asked Carter over the communication system. More than that, Captain. If my theory is correct, the swarm might be a highly intelligent species. Think about its behavior. It doesn't just consume randomly. It targets the most advanced civilizations first. It learns from every encounter. It adapts to overcome any defense. Jake looked at the star maps showing the swarm's path of destruction. If it's intelligent, why is it destroying everything in its path? Maybe it's not destroying. Dr. Foster's voice came over the communication system. Maybe it's trying to communicate, and nobody has bothered to listen. The aliens on the bridge looked shocked. Zethkar's crystal body cycled through several colors rapidly. Impossible. The Void Swarm has consumed 17 worlds. It has killed billions of beings. So have humans, Lisa Park said quietly. In our history, we've had wars that killed millions. But we're still capable of communication, negotiation, and peace, Flux sparked nervously. Are you suggesting we should try to talk to the swarm? Jake looked around at his team, then at the alien allies who had come seeking expendable soldiers. I'm suggesting that maybe, just maybe, everyone has been fighting the wrong war. Major Chris Taylor brought up tactical displays showing previous battles with the swarm. Look at this. Every single engagement follows the same pattern. The aliens send their biggest ships, their most powerful weapons. The swarm responds with overwhelming force. It's like both sides are locked in a dance of escalation. But what if we break the pattern? Sam Rodriguez asked. What if instead of sending warships, we send a message? The idea was so radical that even the humans had trouble accepting it at first. For 50 years, the galaxy's greatest civilizations had been trying to destroy the Void Swarm. Now a group of primitive humans was suggesting they should try to understand it instead. "This is madness," Zethkar said, his crystal form flickering with agitation. "The swarm cannot be reasoned with. It is destruction incarnate." Jake stood up and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Void Swarm was moving closer to the galaxy's core, consuming everything in its path. The conventional approach had failed for half a century. Maybe it was time for an unconventional approach. "Ambassador," he said to Zethkar, "you came to Earth looking for soldiers who weren't afraid to die. You found something else, humans who aren't afraid to think differently." He turned to face the mixed group of humans and aliens. "We're going to do something that no one in the galaxy has tried. We're going to assume the swarm is intelligent, and we're going to try to communicate with it." The room fell silent. The aliens looked terrified. The humans looked determined. "And if we're wrong?" Zethkar asked. Jake smiled grimly. "Then we'll have learned something new about the swarm. And learning is the first step to winning." The massive alien ship appeared over Earth without warning. It was 3 miles long and made of what looked like living crystal. The ship cast a shadow over half of Geneva as it slowly descended through the clouds. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the window of the United Nations building, watching the alien vessel land in the empty field outside the city. He had seen many strange things in his 20 years with Earth Defense Force, but nothing like this. The ship seemed to pulse with its own inner light, like a giant heartbeat made of stars. "Sir, they're requesting to speak with our military leaders," said Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez, rushing into the room with a tablet in his hands. "The translation software is working, but barely. Their language is unlike anything we've heard before." Jake nodded and straightened his uniform. "Tell them we'll meet them in Conference Room A in 1 hour. And Sam, get Commander Lisa Park and Dr. Alex Carter down here immediately." Within the hour, the human delegation was ready. Jake sat at the head of the long table, with Lisa Park on his right and Alex Carter on his left. Lisa was Earth's best military strategist, a woman who could see patterns where others saw only chaos. Alex was their top scientist for studying alien life, though he had never actually met a living alien before today. The aliens entered the room, and the humans tried not to stare. The leader was tall and thin, made of what appeared to be living crystal. His body shifted colors from blue to purple to silver as he moved. Behind him came 2 other beings. One looked like a giant insect with 6 arms and gleaming black eyes. The other seemed to be made of pure energy, crackling and sparking as it floated above the ground. "I am Ambassador Zethkar of the Axiom Empire," the crystal being said. His voice came from a small device attached to his chest, translating his words into English. "These are my companions, Researcher Clicktar of the Hive Worlds and Entity Flux of the Energy Collective." Jake stood up. "Welcome to Earth. I'm Captain Jake Morrison. This is Commander Lisa Park and Dr. Alex Carter. We're honored to meet you, but I have to ask, why are you here?" Zethkar's crystal body flickered red for a moment. "We come because we are desperate, Captain Morrison. Our galaxy faces a threat unlike any we have encountered in our long history. We have tried everything. Our greatest weapons have failed. Our most brilliant scientists cannot find a solution. Our strongest warriors have been defeated." The insect creature, Clicktar, stepped forward. His translated voice was high and clicking. "The threat is called the Void Swarm. It appears from deep space and consumes everything in its path. Entire star systems vanish as if they never existed. Billions of lives lost. Hundreds of worlds gone. Flux, the energy being, made sounds like lightning hitting metal. The swarm learns from every attack we make against it. Energy weapons make it stronger. Kinetic weapons bounce off its hull. Nuclear weapons feed its power. We have tried for 50 years to stop it, but it only grows larger and more dangerous." Dr. Carter leaned forward, his scientific mind already working. "What exactly is this swarm? Is it alive? Is it a machine? Some kind of weapon?" "We do not know," Zethkar admitted. "It appears to be mechanical, but it behaves like a living thing. It eats planets and stars, turning the matter into more of itself. It spreads like a disease across the galaxy. Lisa Park studied the aliens carefully. Something about their body language seemed wrong. You said you've tried everything. You have. Technology far beyond ours. Your ships can travel between stars. Your weapons could probably destroy our entire planet. So why come to us? The three aliens looked at each other. The energy being flux crackled nervously. Finally, Zethkar spoke, his crystal body turning a darker shade of blue. Because we need soldiers who are not afraid to die, he said quietly. The swarm destroys everything that approaches it. We need forces that can get close enough to study it. Even if those forces are lost in the process, we need expendable troops. The room fell silent. Jake felt his jaw tighten. Lisa's eyes narrowed. Alex looked shocked. You want us to be cannon? Fodder, Jake said, his voice dangerously calm. Your species appears suited for this purpose, Zethkar continued, not seeming to notice the change in the human's mood. You are primitive but aggressive. You fight each other constantly. Your technology is simple. You reproduce quickly. If we lose some of your people, you can make more. Kliktar's 6 arms waved excitedly. Yes, yes. The Hive has studied your history. You fight wars over small patches of land. You kill each other for resources that barely matter. You seem to enjoy violence. Perfect for suicide missions against the swarm. Jake stood up slowly. His hands were clenched into fists, but his voice remained steady. Let me make something clear, Ambassador. We don't consider any human life expendable. Every person on this planet matters. But surely you understand the mathematics, Zethkar said, his crystal body shifting to confused yellow. Your planet has 8 billion individuals. We only need a few million. The sacrifice would save trillions of lives across the galaxy. Lisa Park spoke for the first time, her voice cold as ice. You flew across the galaxy to ask us to throw our people into a meat grinder, and you're surprised we're not jumping at the chance? Dr. Carter was studying the datapad the aliens had given them. His scientific curiosity was fighting with his human emotions. What exactly do you know about this swarm? What have you tried that hasn't worked? Flux sparked brighter. We have used plasma cannons that could melt moons. We have fired missiles that could crack planets. We have sent our best warships, vessels that have never known defeat, all consumed by the swarm within hours. And the swarm learns from these attacks? Carter asked. Yes, Kliktar clicked excitedly. It adapts to every weapon we use. After facing plasma cannons, it develops resistance to energy. After meeting kinetic weapons, it grows stronger armor. It is as if the swarm thinks and learns, like a living creature. Jake looked at his teammates. Lisa was still angry, but he could see her military mind working on the problem. Carter was deep in thought, probably already forming theories. Jake made his decision. We'll help you, he said. But not as expendable troops, not as cannon fodder. We'll help you as equals, as partners, and we'll do this our way. Zethkar's body flashed through several colors rapidly. Your way? Captain Morrison, with respect. Your species has barely left its own star system. What could you possibly do that the greatest minds in the galaxy have not already tried? Jake smiled for the first time since the meeting began. It was not a nice smile. Ambassador, that's exactly what we're going to find out. You came looking for primitive, aggressive soldiers. You found us. But you might be surprised by what primitive and aggressive can accomplish when it's combined with human stubbornness. The three aliens looked at each other uncertainly. They had come expecting to hire simple mercenaries. Instead, they had found something they didn't understand. Humans who refused to be underestimated. The meeting was just the beginning.